Now that you've found UBN Radio and discovered our quality talk shows, it's time to spread the word to friends, family, and the universe. 24 hours of music and talk. Radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's ubnradio.com.
Everyone is a product, and everyone needs marketing to succeed. Let's talk about it right now on the C-Spot. Going to market with Wendi and Peter.
We are live on the air with the C-Spot, going to market with Wendi and Peter. And right now we're still kind of looking at we are not looking live in the studio yet because we just need to change the computer network to a live stream here. So you're still looking at the What's Your Bag photo that opens up the show. And I'm sure our technician Tony will be taking care of this any moment now so we can get to the live visual stream picture of this show. But anyway, you are indeed listening to the C-Spot, going to market with Wendi and Peter. And as you just hear from my voice, and you will see in a moment, there I am, live on camera right now. So right now it's just me on camera, and Wendi is at the ERA, the Electronic Retailers Association convention in Las Vegas, the D2C convention, which is direct-to-consumer convention. And we hope she's having a great time. She was going to call in, but she probably won't be calling in now. But anyway, that's just all a lot of jibber-jabber because, as you know, with the C-Spot, going to market with Wendi and Peter, when Wendi is not here and I host the show, as I'm doing right now, I always bring with me a very special co-host, and that would be one Miss Kathy Christopherson. Welcome, Kathy.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to be here.
And it's always a pleasure to have you.
I'm a little disappointed that Wendy's not calling in because I specifically retweeted her tweet and told her that I would dress up because she tricked me.
She did trick you.
I didn't dress up that much, but I did wear a dress specifically for Wendi.
And you do look really great. Look at you.
Thank you.
And that's a really nice dress.
Thank you. It's the first time I've worn it.
Really?
Yeah.
Where did you get it?
I got it at a crazy, girly warehouse sale. I'm very clever with things like that.
Interesting.
Yes.
Is it a certain brand?
It is, but I forgot. Wow. Are we really going into fashion? It's not really my forte, but maybe you should tell me what it is. I think it's I don't want to be wrong. I think it's BCBG.
Okay. That's all right. Just curious.
I think it's BCBG. I'll feel really badly if I'm wrong, though.
But I'm sure whatever it is, it's a very lovely dress. And
that just goes to show
great.
that I'm not about the labels.
Right, exactly. Because most girls would be all over, women, would be all over.
Yeah.
Is that offensive, Kathy, to call women girls?
If I think about it, I would say, really, come on. But I'm kind of loosey-goosey with stuff like that because I think sometimes we get overboard with analyzing the way people express themselves. And I don't think it's necessarily, I think it's cute.
Yeah, because
it's
sometimes
fun.
I also feel like if I say like, oh, usually girls are all over fashion, but I think like, oh, Kathy's a woman, not a girl. But then it could be offensive, like, what, I'm not a girl anymore? Like, that whole...
I wouldn't be offended like that, but I think the reason someone might be offended is if they have some sort of insecurity about their maturity. That's what I think.
Okay, interesting.
It depends on how it's used. If you're being condescending, which you never are, if you're being condescending, that would upset me. But
right.
Yeah.
Like if I was like, hey, girl, what kind of dress is that?
Yeah, then you'd hear about it. Then you'd know immediately if I was offended.
Right.
Everybody in a 5-mile radius would know if I was offended. That's the way it
Yes,
usually goes.
and trust me, audience of the C-Spot, going to market with Wendi and Peter, that is totally true.
Yeah.
Because I've known Kathy for a while. How long have we known each other, Kathy? Like, I would say probably 15-ish years, maybe. We probably met
at least
back in 97-ish or so.
I would say at least, yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Mid-90s, I think.
And, we posted it on the C-Spot Facebook page, which is at facebook.com C-Spot Talk. But I'm going to go ahead and show it to our audience here for one moment. I know that you can't see the live screen, Kathy, but I am putting up a picture of us together with, it's our famous white trash picture with you sitting on my lap, and we're looking all white trash.
Yeah, and that's actually I saw that you included that picture, and I reposted it because I'm rather proud of that photo shoot with a fabulous photographer, Christine Ambrose, we might add.
Yes.
We did a very fun white trash shoot upon request of the photographer, and that is probably by far the tamest picture of that photo shoot. We have some really outrageous
Yeah, and
versions.
it was a blast.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun, and we surprised each other a lot.
Yes, indeed. Yes,
Yeah.
indeed.
Liquid in motion.
Yeah, that was the great part. Liquid in motion. And
Yeah.
did I have any smoke in motion? Or I never lit up, actually.
No, I don't think we went smoke, but
Right.
if I
But
remember
the-
correctly, I showed up with a 6-pack of Mickey Big Mouths.
Right, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But that was a lot of fun. And so we just showed that photo there from that photo shoot. But that was probably about, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years ago, that photo shoot.
I think so, yeah.
But yeah, by Christine Ambrose, and I think you could find her stuff at ChristineAmbrose.com. She's an amazing, amazing photographer.
Really fantastic photographer, not just with people, but travel photos, all sorts of artistic, amazing stuff.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I do want to acknowledge that you might be hearing another voice. We do have a guest in the studio, and we'll be introducing him in a moment. We're very excited to have him here. But just so you know, guest, you're not in camera yet, so as we kind of go through our beginning ramblings here. But we are very excited about our guest, and we'll be introducing him in a moment.
Yeah,
But
guest.
as we, see, I'm even saving him. I'm sure in case you didn't see all the marketing leading up to the show, you probably know who he is. But if not, we're building the anticipation.
Yeah, it's so
Stick
very
around just a couple more minutes, and
My
you're going
name
to find
tag
out who
says
it
guest,
is.
actually.
Right.
Guest has spoken.
Yes, and we hear a voice. We hear a voice. So before we get into our esteemed guest, as we go down this memory lane road of Kathy Christopherson and Peter Soby, since we have the keys to the car here on the C Spot, going to market with Wendi and Peter every Thursday at 12 noon on ubnradio.com, Channel 1. We got the show today, and we just went down memory road with the white trash photo shoot from our past, and I'm sure we have about 80 million stories from our past.
At least.
One thing that we had a lot of fun working on together was a show conceived by yourself that was kind of based on the fact that you're a person with strong opinions about things, and that's one of the
Yes.
things that I love about you. And you thought it would be a great idea to just have some sort of webisode where you rant about things.
Guest is getting nervous. Guest is going, oh.
And then furthermore,
Where are we going?
Yes, you're going.
furthermore, you figured that it would be fun if you did those rants from a bathtub,
A bubble bath.
a bubble
Yes.
bath. Yes, and
Half
then
in, half out.
and then there would also be incorporated guests and so on and so forth. And anyway, long story short, we ended up filming a series of these, and they were called
In the bath with Kath.
Yes. And so the object was
It
Kath
rhymes.
in
What
a
can
bath.
I tell you? Yeah.
So anyway, but
That would be me,
it would
Kath.
kind of start with a rant, and then we'd bring a guest in and kind of get their take on the rant and stuff like that. So keeping in mind our esteemed guest, who we'll be introducing very soon, let's get a little. I want a little
Guest is
taste.
getting
I
excited.
kind of miss the Kathy Christopherson rant.
Oh, not a lot of people say that. Well, actually, they do, which is interesting because I do get very opinionated, and I have to give myself some parameters because I can get heated. Now, in the bath with Kath, I coincidentally often gave the guest the privilege of introducing a rant beforehand, and then I would,
Right.
I would kind of fill it out a little bit, and then they would show up and really, give us their version.
And that still is online, right?
Yeah, it's we did the 4.
Right.
It's like a prototype,
And people
it's,
can
it's
still go there and watch
People
'em.
can still go to In the Bath with Kath
.com.
.com, and
Right.
I'd love to do it. I'd love to really do a full-fledged show because I do have a lot of opinions, and you want me to pull one out, don't you?
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking, that, even though we've been talking about collaborating on something again, and maybe it'll be another version of In the Bath with Kath, but maybe it'll be something else, some wacky short
I
film?
think I've become more and more opinionated since, and I think it's just because the world has become more complex with social media and the internet.
I
And
feel a rant coming
yeah,
on.
no, it's true.
I feel it
And
coming
now
on. Bring
everybody's
it.
got a forum, and so
Bring it,
and
Kathy.
that could be good, but it also can be bad because then people start expressing crazy ideas. And one of the things that's been driving me crazy, and I think reflects in all sorts of ways, particularly negative ways, is the lack of critical thinking in our society. And that's something that really bothers me. And maybe we'll even talk about it with guest. I don't know, but it's something that gets me fired up because it feels very irresponsible. And it comes out with people's fundamental, stringent religious beliefs. It comes out with partisan politics. It comes out with bullying. You know, people don't seem to have a tendency. They see things on the news, and the news is a gatekeeper, and people don't consider the fact that maybe that's not true. Nobody says, I can't say nobody, lots of people say, but most people just buy in to what they hear, and they often don't question, is this a reliable source? Should I do some of my own research? Should I consider that there are other points of views on this? Is this a bandwagon I want to jump on? And to me, that is one of the fundamental issues in our society because, it leads to horrible things. It leads to in my opinion, it leads to things like ISIL and all sorts of
ISIL?
ISIS, ISIL,
Oh,
whatever
okay.
you want to call it.
I'd only heard ISIS. ISIL.
Yeah, the L is for Levant.
Oh, okay.
That's a whole other.
I was thinking like ISIL made me think of Icicle House, an 80s band, and that's a whole...
Pretty sure that's not what I
Yeah,
meant.
I'm pretty sure that wasn't either, but...
That's a whole
Shows you how
other
my
show.
mind works.
Yeah,
Talk
right.
about critical thinking, huh?
Yeah,
what? Are we
right.
talking about Duran
Yeah.
Duran? What?
See, you're not. I have a Duran Duran story too. Again, that's another
Right,
show.
That's a whole other thing.
But that for me, I'm guilty of it as well. But I'm constantly trying to keep my mind open. I'm constantly asking questions. When somebody who's smarter than me and more informed than me says something that I don't understand, I don't argue with them about it or disagree or even agree with them. I go do as much research as I can, so I try to understand more fully what they're talking about and if they missed something or if they introduced something that I didn't know. And I wish more people would adopt that way of thinking because it just leaves a whole society of irresponsible thinkers.
How you said you're guilty of critical thinking too. It doesn't sound like you're guilty of it at all.
No, guilty of lack of critical thinking sometimes. I mean, I really
I'm saying it doesn't
myself.
sound like you have a lack of critical thinking whatsoever.
Maybe it's,
You're just being humble.
No, I think it's just relative. I just think that, sometimes I watch news on TV and that makes me a little guilty because I should do more reading and I should look for other sources. And I think TV news is really kind of tanked in the last few years.
But you could consider it just one of those sources you're checking into, as long as you're double checking in other places.
Yeah, as long as you're double checking other places. And let's face it, we don't have time always to be digging into every aspect of every single thing we hear. So I monitor myself. That's all. And
Okay.
I wish you and everyone else would.
Well,
you
thank
too,
you.
guest.
Yeah, and so
it's a work in progress, right?
that was a nice little rant, Kathy. I really
Okay.
enjoyed that.
Okay.
So
Oh, good.
next time you're around, we'll get into that again, and we'll keep giving the audience a little bit of teaser down the road as far as
because
what's up with me and Kath. We're gonna come up with something really good.
There's nothing like an enjoyable rant.
And and I will also bring up that at the end of the show, we're going to talk a little bit about the big fundraiser that you're a part of tonight for the Dirty Dog Squad.
Yay. I
So-
love that you're going to mention that.
Oh yeah, we will, and we'll get into that toward the end. But Kathy is part of a big fundraiser for the Dirty Dog Squad, and as you can see here, there's a picture of just a beautiful dog with the Dirty Dog Squad.
Yeah, that's Dave
logo there.
Kaplowitz, who run Dave and Veronica are amazing. We're going to talk about this later, right?
Yeah.
But I just want to also give him props for being an amazing dog photographer. I mean, he just gets these
that
are all
photo there
rescues.
is amazing.
And he photographs dogs where their personality just shines right through. So.
And until we give all the details about tonight, the website is dirtydogsquad.org, right?
Yes.
So if people want to be checking it out while watching us or listening to us, go check out dirtydogsquad.org, and we'll talk a little bit about the fundraiser toward the end of the show.
Great, because it is tonight. So
Yeah, it is tonight, just hours away.
Just
so
hours.
I like the fact that your rant was about critical thinking, and interestingly enough, our guest today is a very critical thinker. And just a little bit of an introduction. He is a licensed psychologist based here in Los Angeles. Did you know that, Kathy?
I did know that.
And he received his doctorate in clinical psychology consciousness. And he specializes in working with individuals, couples, families, children. Can you tell I'm reading this?
You're doing it eloquently.
And but he's got a very humanistic, eclectic viewpoint and approach that he deals with these people. And I'm not going to get into too much more of that right now until we start talking to him. But I would like to introduce our guest, a PhD, Richard Olberger. Welcome to the C-Spot, Richard.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Kath. Thanks for having
And
me.
finally, he is on camera. We
Yes.
finally see our guest.
Yes,
Hi,
the
everybody.
mystery man, the guest.
So, Richard, welcome to the C-Spot, Going to Market with Wendi and Peter. Now, usually this show, the motto of this show, being that it's a marketing show, and Wendi, whom you don't know, Richard, she is a direct response expert, which means that she does infomercials and such, but I'll be careful how I word it because it's a whole nother thing these days and stuff like that. But anyway, she does infomercials, and direct response is a call to action. And we have guests of all varieties on the show a lot of times dealing with marketing, and we'll have experts that we talk about marketing and such like that. So anyway, and so I do want to talk a little bit eventually about, the motto of this show is like how to bring a product to market, even if that product is you. So we could eventually talk a little bit about, as a psychologist, you have to market yourself, you have to market your business and all of that. But before we get into all of that, I am really interested in kind of like hearing what you're all about. So first of all, just kind of give us a little background. Who is Richard Olberger, psychologist?
Thank you, Peter. And, first let me say, a lot of psychologists, we have to overcome a little bit of marketing shame. Certainly we don't go to business school, and coming forth with our skills and coming out there and reaching out to people isn't necessarily something that we've been trained to do. So this whole process is a learning process for me and for many of my colleagues, where indeed we're very new to how do we step out, how do we reach out to the people in the areas that we may have studied in books or done research on, and now we want to connect with those people.
Interesting. And, that actually makes me think, and Kathy, feel free to step in anytime. I know you're, I kind of laid down some guidelines and stuff like that, but anyway.
Just being a
But it
quiet
does,
little mouth.
but it does, because this is a marketing show,
Mhm.
that does bring up an interesting point, Richard, that I would actually like to ask you about now before we get further into you, is that because we have so many marketing people listening to the show in all different aspects of life, it sounds like there's a niche out there. So people who do marketing, go find your local psychologist. They need help with marketing.
That's true. Yeah, there's a lot of stigma out there about ethics and what's the right thing to do and how to reach people, even if you certainly don't want to be perceived as an ambulance chaser or somebody who's trying to capitalize on someone else's pain. So the whole goal of this is, how do you remain true to your values and goals as a psychologist or as a healer, as a practitioner, and at the same time reach the most people possible, whether it be in your community or your city or now through the internet, through various multimedia methods.
Yeah. So now we'll get back to like a kind of a basic again. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and your history, how you got into psychology.
Sure. Well, as a kid, I always loved being with everybody else on the playground. Growing up in New York, always fascinated by people, their differences, diversity. Always been in that way very curious. Me, you know, gifted to meet people in a variety of ways from a young age and be exposed in that way. My mother is a guidance counselor. Father wishes he was a psychologist. And we're from Austria, so, Sigmund Freud didn't fall far from the tree, I guess, in terms of an influence. So it was always something I wanted to pursue. I, did the undergraduate in psychology, spent some time researching trauma and how people in the Middle East lived in college, and then got a master's in psychology, and then kind of hit the brakes and said, well, I'm not sure I want to be fully clinical. I think there's something to people's spirituality, there's something to how people identify themselves, something to how people even come together after a crisis. Having been in New York just days after 9/11, and worked with people such as Holocaust survivors or children that had lost their parents in war, got more of a sense of what I wanted to give to people or help them identify obviously tremendous loss and things that maybe I could add to their life or help them get a hold on and coping with as they move forward. So I did finish my doctorate in 2006 with an emphasis in spiritual psychology, and in doing so got in touch with people from Harvard, from the greatest schools in the nation, but they were really interested in creating this bridge between psychology, how it had become evolved from Sigmund Freud into behavioral therapies, into cognitive therapies, into humanistic therapies, but yet something what they begin to term the transpersonal, something that goes a little bit beyond our connection to each other, allows for people to have these beliefs in something greater going on in their life and for their spiritual practices, because most of the research said that people feel very uncomfortable bringing it up in session, that they have a belief in a higher power, or that it was something taboo to even go to. Or they felt that the people they worked with didn't value or validate that experience in them. So a whole portion of their experience had to be kept quiet, even when they were in a counseling session.
So you're basically saying that you, in talking to these different people, that you saw that there was a space that needed that people needed help with that wasn't being addressed?
It probably mirrored a spot within myself and my own development, but yes, I became increasingly conscious that whether you were a 6-year-old child living in the desert in Israel, or whether you were a 55-year-old Santa Monica person diagnosed with schizophrenia, there was this quality of wanting to be connected to on a spiritual level, and that my psychological intervention seemed to leave me always wondering if there was a little bit different way or something more that I needed to do to conceptualize what was going on.
And even furthermore than a spiritual level, and combining that with a clinical psychological level, you also throw in a third dash of a little something into your psychological stew, right?
That's right. I've been fortunate enough to be a student of martial arts for 10 years, of Shaolin Kempo, and was privileged enough to spend last summer in the Shaolin Temple in China.
Wow.
And so I've been able to gather, although initially I didn't see how these different paths intersected. Always thinking of martial arts as something aggressive, or a way only to deal with maybe anger inappropriately. It's taught me a great deal about meditation, control of breath and mind, focus and discipline, which in my experience, especially with teenagers in Los Angeles, was something that
or anywhere.
I just kind of wanted to step out of my crisis intervention room and bring them to a karate dojo and give them some breathing skills or some movement skills to get the stress and tension they're carrying around with them out of their heads. And so I'm lucky to have that, and I'm thankful to find a way now through my practice to incorporate these 3 different modalities into one method of practice.
That's really interesting. And to me, I mean, that sounds completely unique to me. I mean, I don't know that there's other psychologists out there combining all 3 of those modalities together.
You know, certainly I hope my experiences are unique, and I do know that there are people out there doing different things. I do have learned from people who teach breath work, who teach people how to how much they're really to track their breathing and connect it with their mood states. I have been able to get in touch with people who certainly have awareness of visualization skills. So I think it's important that I remain conscious that there are people out there who may have been utilizing maybe Buddhist strategies, and certainly a lot of people who happen to be psychologists and maybe students of different Tai Chi paths or things like that, which I hope a lot of practitioners are doing for their own self-care and balance for their own burnout levels. But I'm not sure there's many students who have been 15 years, been able to study Kabbalah, and then 10 years in karate. I'm very lucky that those experiences intertwined for me when they did.
I have to chime in,
Yeah,
if you don't mind,
please.
because I'm dying to know. Having watched quite a few Bruce Lee films in my time.
I feel a question coming about
Yeah.
a bathtub intervention.
No, maybe later. But I'm just. Can you give us, because I'm having images, on how you would integrate martial arts into the behavioral therapy in a session?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, there's two kind of different answers to that question. One would be practically, a lot of what we do as a clinician in our dialogue is attitude, it is perspective. And a lot of what you gain from martial arts is an understanding of flowing with things in general, more allowing, like you started to mention before. As we get more and more information on the smartphones, the news, the traffic, the stresses are building constantly and overwhelmingly. And what I feel is that, and this is in line with Kabbalah philosophy as well, we wind up in a very reactive nature. Our stress, we're not really in touch with what we're feeling. We're just reacting to the circumstances till we hit kind of a pressure, and then there's anger or depression that results. So when people are coming to see me, they may not even be conscious of the way in which stress is affecting them, or in which they're reacting to things, and how much they're connecting to those influences. How much are they checking their Facebook? How much news do they watch? What are their perceptions when they're driving? Many people seem to be wonderful people, they're being slighted and building rage in the car. So practically it can be introduction of philosophy, but in terms of skills, people do come in, they want to learn a tool. And so it can be breath work, it can be practicing mindfulness strategies, visualizing themselves on the proverbial mountaintop, which I was thankful to be able to climb and go up myself. So just to walk people through a 10-15 minute journey of going up a mountain in the rain, seeing themselves overcoming something, maybe inserting what that particular challenge they're working on is. Maybe it's a licensing exam, maybe it's a relationship they're having difficulty confronting, maybe it's just one habit they want to change. So
You hit on so many different things that I feel have erupted in the last several years, probably because of all the noise and traffic. One of them is the incessant news watching is so depressing. I really think it changes moods.
Yeah.
People don't realize. And a couple other things, the traffic. I have people cut me off and then go, yeah, and yell at me. And how does that happen? Why is there so much anger? I say hello to people walking down the street all the time, and 9 times out of 10, I'm received with horror, because I said hello. And
Or like, what are you talking to me
yeah,
for?
yeah. And my answer has always been, just keep saying hello. and hopefully they'll have time to think about it and they'll say hello to somebody. But is that naive? Or I know those are the kinds of things that you deal with, just even, not necessarily a real specific, I'm getting ready for this exam, or I need to deal with something with my job. Do you ever deal with those kind of everyday madness?
Well, I think try not to stereotype too much. I'm still hopeful for community building, even in our big city here of Los Angeles, and I know that there are a lot of people out there that make a big effort to create that kind of connection amongst people and amongst their environment. But it does take quite a bit of work to overcome, the gravity or the nature of things, which is unfortunately we do see the news, we do hear of the bad things going on, we do, and it creates kind of a defensive posture, a fearful. We learn a lot of fear. It's both positive in that children learn about what's going on in the world and maybe why it's happening and why to try and live different. But at the same time, it creates a lot of distrust. And especially in big cities, we're all colliding with all of our unconscious baggage of distrust and trying to survive in such a racing atmosphere where we're competing. We're not necessarily cooperating. So we become more detached from our emotions and our connection to one another. And I think most people that come in to see me are the gift of being a therapist, of that moment. We kind of create the sacred space in session. I think the mental health clinic is kind of replacing, in some ways, the church or the synagogue. For a lot of people, that is where they will go. They may not have a belief system, but they will go. They may even get a referral from their employer that says, "Hey, go and talk to somebody. Find a little bit of quiet." Because without even noticing it, somebody who is a friendly, outgoing person all of a sudden says, maybe it isn't safe to be outgoing, and
that's a great point.
Is it safe to have my door open, have a neighbor over?
And there was lots of interesting things that you said in there. And what's funny is before the show, Kathy and I talked a lot about it. Kept saying I don't want to turn the show into religion and all this sort of stuff, but you brought up a couple of interesting things between spirituality, Kabbalah, that brings up questions, and now with religion as being a place that people used to maybe go for advice that isn't a place they necessarily go. So we have a lot of fascinating topics I want to get to. But first, we need to have a word from our sponsor, as the show is sponsored. But that is a little teaser to stay tuned after the sponsor. And because also after the word from our sponsor, we're also going to see the commercial for the EasyGo Pro, which is the product that our very own Wendi Cooper has created and is marketing. So we're going to take a little break right now. Our sponsor is a company called Direct Avenue, and they are they're kind of a media buying place, and they're the best place to go to for your media buying. So if you're going to be putting a commercial on the air, infomercial on the air, they would be a place that you could feel safe in going to, and they would be getting you the best deals. As you can see on the screen right now, for those of you watching the show, Scott Kowalczyk, the CEO, his number is right there on the screen, his direct number. You can call him direct, 760-579-4210. He will pick up the phone, and he will give you a free consultation. Isn't that amazing, Kathy?
That's pretty amazing. Not a lot of freebies these days.
And that is the sponsor of our show. So I know Wendy's probably going to kill me because she hates when I talk on and on about something without just showing the commercial. But it's our sponsor. I figured I'd give him a good talk up,
Yeah.
So
He deserves it.
Yeah, exactly. So without further ado, we will go to a word from our sponsor, and then we'll watch an EasyGo Pro commercial for Wendy's product. Then we'll be back talking about some of those further exciting topics of psychology, spirituality, martial arts, religion.
And the integration of all of those things.
Oh my gosh. Stay tuned to the C-Spot Going to Market with Wendi and Peter.
Direct Avenue is much more than a leading direct response TV media buyer. We specialize in the expert planning, brand building, analysis, and management of short-form and branded DRTV ad campaigns. We manage direct response TV ad campaigns for clients throughout the United States and Canada. As a Direct Avenue client, you'll benefit from big agency relationships and resources, but receive boutique agency service with the flexibility and creativity to plan and manage a TV ad campaign that meets the particular needs of your company. For more information, visit directavenue.com. When you contact us, mention you heard about us on the C-Spot radio show and receive a free analysis of your TV ad campaign.
In an average lifetime, 1,500,000 minutes are spent on the toilet.
People spend a lot of time on the toilet because they're not going very easy.
So what's the problem?
When you sit on a toilet, you're at a 90-degree angle.
Nature didn't want us to do it that way.
This causes pushing, straining, hemorrhoids, constipation.
That's crazy.
Everybody goes.
It's what we all do. We're human beings.
We want to create a product that is great for humanity.
Making it easy for people to improve their lives.
That's all we care about.
Well, go time just got easier. Introducing Easy Go Pro, the only way to go.
Human bodies are made by nature, and there is a position that is more natural than sitting on a toilet with a 90-degree angle of your legs.
Anatomically, we were designed to eliminate at a 35-degree angle.
What EasyGo Pro does is it elevates your feet.
To put your hips in the proper position for easier elimination.
You just sit, lift, and go in a natural position.
The benefits list is this long from a pure health perspective.
A healthy colon is encouraged by doctors for all ages.
The key to vitality, it's the key to longevity, it's the key to your health.
That is really the essence.
Easy Go Pro is simple, safe, and it works. Sturdy but lightweight, it's perfect for the entire family. When not in use, it slides easily out of the way.
Is like the perfect height for a 2-year-old to rest his feet on.
If you make that little change, you will realize immediately the benefits.
And that's the reason that we created it.
At EasyGoPro.com, we guarantee it will work for everyone. Be a healthy goer. Order now at EasyGoPro.com. Try it for 70 days. If you don't absolutely feel better, just send it back for a full product refund. Go time just got healthier at EasyGoPro.com.
And we are back on the C-Spot, going to market with Wendi and Peter here at the lovely UBN Studios at Sunset Gower Studios in the heart of Hollywood, California, where all the magic in the world happens. And I'm Peter Soby, and I'm here today with Kathy Christopherson, and we're guest hosting because our beloved Wendi Cooper is at the ERA D2C Convention, the Electronic Retailers Association direct-to-consumer convention in Las Vegas, which is their very big convention of the year. And hopefully she'll have a lot of really good stories next week to tell us about the convention. And just in the spirit of next week, really quick, before we get back into things here, Kathy, is Wendi will be back here next week, and she will be talking about what's right with infomercials right now these days with our guest Andy Spivak. How exciting does that sound to you?
It sounds very exciting, and that name is so familiar. Why is that name so familiar?
Yeah, I don't know. It sounds familiar to me too,
Andy
and I'm not sure why.
Spivak.
But yeah, he'll be our guest in the studio live next week.
Me too.
And the topic will
Really?
be what's right with infomercials. And I'm excited for that topic myself because a lot of times, even here on the C-Spot, because, you know, Wendi is known to rant a lot, which kind of maybe correlates with what's wrong with infomercials. It'll be great to hear about
What's right?
what's right, like
and
what's going
right
on
now,
that's good.
as opposed to
Yeah.
10 years ago, 20 years ago. How has that
Yeah.
changed? That's an interesting
Yeah,
idea.
so it'll be interesting. But today, we're on a whole different topic. We're talking psychology. We're talking human kindness. We are talking human consciousness, all sorts of stuff. It's very, very, very,
And
very
again,
fascinating.
integrating all of them, which is even more fascinating.
Yes, and our in-guest studio today is Richard Olberger, PhD, because you go to a lot of school for that. And
That's right.
we actually haven't mentioned it yet, but his website is richardlistens.com, which is really catchy. I like that. How'd you come up with Richard Listens?
Well, I think it's a reminder that I need to do a lot more of it. Yeah, I think I want people to get the concept that when they meet me, to remember that that there's somebody be there who will listen and listen attentively. I can notice in people's eyes when they hear the website, that seeing a psychologist has a lot of stigma. I'm going to go because I have a problem. I'm going to go because there's something wrong, right? I don't really want to tell anyone I'm going to see a psychologist. So, the idea that they're going to go and get, undivided attention, and maybe even the idea of listening where I may be hearing things that maybe you don't even notice you're saying, or that lead to deeper value-oriented questions or thoughts, fears that you may be kind of not really aware of or not conscious of, or just wrestling between different feelings that might be causing a conflict in some way, or just wanting to get deeper or advance further in learning. So I think listening is the key to that.
It's nice. I like that. I like that.
You bring up a great point too. I'm an actor, so it almost comes with the territory. Therapy is a necessity, whether you think you have a problem or not. It doesn't. It's more maintenance, really, and it just seems to be part of a health regimen. However, I am from the Midwest, and when I started going to therapy many years ago, my family said, how is it going with the therapist? And, I would try to, as though I was going for some outrageous problem, and it was really stigmatic. And whenever there was a problem with a family member or a friend, and I would discuss it, it seemed taboo. It seemed like I was bringing up a failure to them, and I just want to piggyback on what you were saying, because I think it's really important for people to understand that really it's not much different in my eyes as getting massages for your body. It's sort of like a massage of the mind and spirit, and so no matter where you're from. I think it's a little bit more accessible in Los Angeles, where people are a little bit more open-minded about stuff like that.
Yeah, when I hear you say that, I think that's, it's as if, oh, well, you have issues, Kat. That's what you're saying is you have issues, and then you can't handle them. Right. And that's somehow bad, or that it can't be handled within the family or within the community.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're strong and we're good, and we don't,
it's fascinating.
And we're coping. So there's can be a belief within a family or an environment that we're healthy. What's outside is unhealthy. I'm sorry. So there is an admission of some vulnerability and willingness to grow, which thankfully many people in LA come seeking that, especially in the acting profession, are wanting to be challenged to face certain emotions, which may be very uncomfortable, and to have to get in touch with, fear. Maybe accessing something that someone may not be ready to do. But
well, I do think sometimes someone like me, I think I take it for granted, and so I try to put myself in other people's positions, but I do really try to promote the idea that it is simply taking care of yourself, no matter how you want to look at it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, it's really, I hope it's becoming more, nowadays, whether it was how many bestsellers have been self-help books, but people nowadays are seeking out, maybe they're more comfortable with coaching, it's termed differently. Maybe they want more of a brief strategic therapy, something that's only going to they see it's only a commitment to 6 sessions. I think people are fearful of becoming the lifelong patient, being dependent on somebody else, or endlessly looking into the abyss and never really getting anywhere. And I respect that. People have more demands on their time, and they do want to feel like they're progressing or moving somewhere. So I hope it's becoming, more normal, and people also becoming more comfortable asking for what they want, and not just this purely, Western notion where the practitioner is the expert, and you are just completely at their will of whatever they say or do, or if, in the case of, referring to psychiatry or prescribing a medication, that without processing or doing any of the deeper work. So I think people, hopefully there's a shift, depending on the environment, where people want to learn more, connect more, and get more in touch with what they can do about it. And I hope to be a part of that change.
Well, we are a lot more in charge than I think a lot of people want to come to terms with, because it's a lot easier to have this idea of pressing a button, taking medication that's so freely prescribed to people, and that creates all sorts of problems, instead of just saying, hey, this is a little bit of work, it's a little bit of process, and I'm in charge, and I can take care of my psychological self, however you want to put it, or my spirit. That requires a little bit of effort. It's kind of like going to the gym.
Yeah.
You got to do it. You can't just step in a machine for a couple minutes.
So just like one of my early, Kabbalah teachers told me, I said, I have a lot of learning to do. He says, no, mostly unlearning, because that's a lot of what I'm doing with people, right? It's really unlearning in that when you say that, what we've just said very simply, this might require work. There's a lot of resistance. There's so much learning and modeling that may have gone into, could be, generations or at least years of learning. You're not empowered. You don't have the ability to affect the change. You don't have the ability to overcome this traumatic cycle or addiction cycle. Even if it's not being reinforced externally, it may be believed internally. So allowing someone to help you even become conscious of those beliefs or thoughts that are feeding this belief system, that this is not only going to perpetuate, but probably going to get worse, right? Because we know if it's, in our field, usually if it's not improving, it's worsening, because that same coping skill that they're using, they're going to go to more often.
Are you met with a lot of resistance because people say, wait a second, I don't want all those years to be wrong. I don't want to have been living with these wrong ideas. So if I come in and I see you're going to wipe out this belief system that I've been
that's a great question.
Upon.
I mean, obviously in my work, I run into the resistance every day, and I'm glad to meet people with the same openness and excitement, because I know what the work can do, but I understand their resistance. And sometimes they come back after a month, even any sign of them coming back may be that acknowledgement of it. So there's many levels, verbally getting them to commit to taking action. For different people, may be ready to move at different paces. But part of the reason that I'm excited to be doing more speaking, writing, getting out there is I hope when people do choose to come and see who I am, that they are asking or giving me a little bit of that key permission to say, okay, proceed. I'm willing to do a little bit of the work here, and I'm willing to be to have that resistance met with direction.
That's interesting, and I want to go further into that for a final moment, but just to kind of like let the audience know where we're at. The show goes by so fast.
So fast.
Like, if you can believe, we only have like 4 minutes left of the show.
What?
That's it. 4 minutes.
Why can't we have another hour?
I know, it's so crazy, and there's like so much. I mean, here we even like prefaced all this like hot topic talk about the spirituality and religion and all of this, and we didn't quite get to it.
I have so many questions.
I know, so many questions. But what I want to, since we got to really wrap it up, because then I want to talk about the Dirty Dog Squad thing, is Richard, you actually just brought up a good point that kind of can segue us into wrapping it up, is that you said you're hoping to get out there more with books and speaking and stuff like that. And that kind of is tied in with marketing, actually, which is a nice little wrap up for the C-Spot, going to market with Wendi and Peter. That is a way that you can kind of like market yourself as a psychologist. So you have, plans to get out there with a book and speaking and stuff like that?
Yes, thank you, Peter. I do have a book published on Amazon called Kabbalah and Positive Change. It's more of a textbook, so I'm hoping to create more electronic media, more accessible, hopefully through my website, and maybe make more of a practical per session guide. So what are things people could use that integrate Kabbalah, martial arts, and psychology in their daily life, and give them kind of a simple read, practical tools kind of book. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting out there and speaking to professionals, schools, doctors, and helping in any way. If there may be someone sitting in front of them that they have that thought, this person really needs a little bit more than I can offer in my scope, that my name would come to mind. or others in the profession doing similar commendable work.
And what is the type of person that would come to you? So if they're listening to the show right now, what kind of person would pick up the phone and call Richard Listens?
I think it's anyone who's at any level of success that just wants to get a little bit further, that knows that they can achieve a little bit more, and is willing to be guided to have a deeper discussion about how they integrate the practical aspects of their life with maybe some more deeper but practical tools. Then I can help them, and we can do it in a reasonable amount of time. As much work as you're willing to put in, is the quicker that we'll get results.
Amazing. And
I also think it's really important to mention in 2 seconds, just based on the conversation that we had before we started airing, that no one is alienated, because your concept of spirituality, which people can throw around in all different ways, but it seems like you're very, the way that you integrate spirituality encompasses all different religious beliefs and atheists and agnostics and anybody who is looking for, correct me if I'm wrong, their own personal light, whatever that may be, which I think is really important for people out there to understand, because you don't get that everywhere.
Absolutely. I mean, my identity and practice is spiritual practice. I'm very forward about it. It's in books I've authored. People identify me with it, but certainly I'm working to help the person with their culture, their belief system, where they're at. If they want to stay within that and get stronger, then I'm going to help them connect to that. Wherever their truth is, wherever they're going to get more inspiration, hope, power, I'm going to, give them concepts or help them go and find out more where they can get more strength and feel better about living.
That's amazing.
Which we all want to do.
Yeah. Yes. So this whole time that you've been on air, Richard, we've had your website, richardlistens.com, and your phone number. But if people want to reach you, what would be the phone number and email to reach you at?
It is Richard at richardlistens.com, listens.com, and the phone number is 310-490-6733.
Awesome. So, Richard Olberger, PhD, thank you for being our guest this week on the C-Spot, Going to Market with Wendi and Peter.
Thank
it
you
was
so
very
much.
Informative, and like Kathy said, I mean, we could talk for 5 hours probably. There's so
really
much we
enjoyed
didn't
having
even
you
get
here.
to. But
now we're
thank
gonna
you.
get to some exciting charitable causes.
Yes.
We're going to get to the dogs.
Thank you both.
So thank you for being our guest, Richard.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you.
My pleasure. Anytime.
So, Kathy,
Yes,
we have
Peter?
like literally 40 seconds, and even that's like
I feel so
too
pressured.
long.
Let's get right to it.
But what's going on with Dirty Dog Squad?
So, as many of you know, I have a particular fondness for Dirty Dog Squad, which is a nonprofit organization rescuing not just dogs but cats out of the shelters, and getting them fosters, taking care of their health, getting them the best forever homes. This is such a great organization. Dave Kaplowitz and Veronica Higby, they just have done an amazing job, and we are celebrating the 5th anniversary of Dirty Dog Squad. They're a nonprofit in Venice, and it is going to be at Sage Bistro. All the information, you're putting the flyer up, right?
The flyer's up right
now. It is
now.
tonight. The happy hour starts at 6 o'clock. There's a 5-course meal. The food is really yummy at Sage. If you've never been there in Culver City, and if you haven't already gotten your tickets, you can get them right there at the door. It's $55, which is it's all tax deductible, but that's amazing because at the Sage Bistro you can easily spend that, and with this tax deductible donation that's going to go straight to saving dogs' lives, you're going to have a fabulous 5-course meal and a happy hour, and there's going to be a raffle and live music, and it's always fun. And I'm going to say a couple words here or there. So
Yeah, you're like the host, right?
well, I do whatever I can for the organization. They're just amazing. And if you go tonight, not only will you have a fantastic time, you'll see the great work that they're doing. And just go to the website, dirtydogsquad.org, and you can see some of the pictures of the current rescues and past rescues, and it'll warm your heart. And these dogs are just amazing.
Yeah,
so.
it is really great work they're doing, and animals are really close to my
Save
heart.
some
So
lives,
I
eat
think
some
it's
good
amazing that
food.
you're such a strong part of the organization. And
Thank you.
chances are a lot of people will be listening to or watching this show after tonight. So just make sure you go to dirtydogsquad.org.
Yeah, check them out. There's all sorts of things you can do to volunteer or donate. But of course, if you're listening live, come surprise us and say hello to me and tell me that you heard about us at C-Spot. That'll really tickle me.
Yes. So, Kathy, thank you for coming in and guest hosting with me in lieu of Wendi being at the convention. It was a real treat to be here with you.
I'm honored, and I wish we could have heard from Wendi today because I adore her.
Yeah.
But I'm blessed that you guys have me here. So thank you very much.
And we will see you live here next Thursday, with our guest Andy Spivak on the C-Spot Going to Market with Wendi and Peter, 12 noon, ubnradio.com, Channel 1. See you next week.